out here today and joining us in a celebration of basically a live recreation of your favorite shows from the golden age of radio. We are those thrilling days of yesteryear. And today we are celebrating the President of the United States. Well, because it's President's Day, not necessarily this, but the official role of the President of the United States. And actually, our two programs originally aired back in 1947 and 1948. But that is all that we're going to tell you about those shows. Why? Well, because this old-time radio show, Mr. President, this series, was a very unique kind of program that dramatized some very little-known tales of our past commanders-in-chiefs. And they would not reveal the identity. He was only referred to as Mr. President. So, in order to give you as close to the same experience as the audiences did way back when, we're going to keep the names of these presidents a secret until the very end. However, these stories are quite exciting. Our first one shows a president full of mischief as he continues to elude his protective and ever-watchful Secret Service. However, due to the tensions from a coal miner strike, an angry intruder comes into the Oval Office, and the president finds himself all alone with this man holding a gun. And our second story tells of a president who had a dream that foreshadowed his own death. Now, this series was amazing that it featured Edward Arnold, who portrayed every single president week after week after week. But for this show, we're going to split that role, so we have two different people playing Edward Arnold's and two separate presidents. But these stories were all true, you know. They really did happen. And you'll find out who each of our brave presidents are by the end of this program. And we will do our best to recreate these shows for you just as they aired, with music, sound effects, and lots of presidential banter to inspire you. While you are listening, you might pretend that you are one of those who had the fortune of being in the live studio audience as they watched their favorite performers do their thing. Or perhaps you might wish to just sit back, close your eyes, and imagine that you are sitting in your living room in front of the old Philco radio, anxiously awaiting for your favorite show to begin. So join us now as we take you back to those thrilling days of yesteryear.
The following program was transcribed from its earlier network release. The American Broadcasting Company and its affiliated stations present Mr. President, starring Edward Arnold. Mr. President, at home in the White House, the elected leader of our country, our fellow citizen and neighbor, these little-known stories of the men who have lived in the White House, dramatic, exciting events of the lives that you and I so rarely hear, the true human stories of Mr. President. Let's visit Mr. President in the White House. It's evening, though only one window shows the light, the study on the ground floor. We find ourselves at the front door and... Come right on in, please. The President's expecting you. Through that door, please.
Go right in. Some business for you, Mr. President.
Oh, hello. Sit down, won't you? Oh, of course it's all right. You know, before I moved in here, I had the idea that the president is somehow more than a human being. But believe me, he isn't. I get aches and pains just the way you do. All kinds of things happen at the White House here. Things people never hear about. Let me tell you a true story that's hardly known to all. Now, which president was it when it actually happened? I'll tell you later on. But meanwhile, see if you can guess. It started the evening I came back to the White House after taking a long, brisk walk.
Mr. President!
Oh, hello, Captain.
Are you all right, Mr. President?
Well, don't I look all right?
Yes, sir. Only, where are McGrath and Cooper?
Ah, Captain, they're fine young fellows. They're the most pleasant bodyguards you ever assigned to me.
They're not supposed to let you out of their sight.
I assure you, they didn't do it on purpose.
Oh, not again, Mr. President.
Oh, you'd appreciate my strategy, Captain. I walked into the swamp, the one by the river. They did exactly what I expected. They ran around to the other side to pick me up again, but I turned right around and came out where I went in. Oh, you know, Hannibal did that once to the Romans. I hate being followed, Captain.
But we've got to guard you, sir. Yesterday, a bomb came in the mail. This morning, more of those threatening letters. Oh, McGrath and Cooper are going to catch it from me.
Doc, don't be hard on them.
And I'm going to catch it from Miss Sarah.
Oh, well, I won't tell her if you won't.
I can't fool Miss Sarah, sir. And neither can you.
You know, I was enjoying myself thoroughly until you said that, Captain.
I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Well, however, it was fun while it lasted. Can't you just see poor McGrath and Cooper running around and around that swamp and waiting for me to come out? Good night, Captain.
Good night, Mr. President.
Captain.
Yes, sir?
You will say anything to Miss Sarah.
I'll do my best, sir.
Good night, Captain.
Your breakfast, Mr. President.
Come in, Ralph. Well, you can push those papers off the table.
They're all about the coal strikes.
I know them by heart, and much good it does me. Push them aside.
Yes, sir. The senator's on his way upstairs, sir.
Oh, he's back from New York?
Evidently, yes, sir.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Good morning.
May I join you for breakfast?
Well, isn't this our regular day, John? Sit down.
Ah, thanks.
Fried ham this morning, gentlemen.
Well, I'm not very hungry this morning.
I love fried ham, Ralph.
With eggs on top like the sun coming up.
No, I'm not hungry, really.
But I am, Ralph.
And Mama laid in coffee, too.
You'll pardon me if I begin, Mr. President?
Well, I suppose I ought to eat something.
Yes, sir.
Ralph,
Sir,
my toast. Where's the butter?
your diet, Mr. President.
Now, where did Miss Sarah get that idea?
You're on a diet, too. My wife made me adopt hers.
My wife, too.
This is a very humbling experience, Ralph.
Humbling, sir.
I'm President of the United States. I'm responsible for millions and millions of people, but I can't get butter on my toast.
It just goes to show you, sir, that there is no such thing as unlimited power.
Yeah, you're right. Newton learned about gravity from an apple. We learned about power from toast.
And sometimes the most baffling problems yield to the most simple solutions, Senator.
Mr. President, I'm glad to find you in this mood. I chatted with Captain Drew on my way in.
Oh, I think I know what's coming.
Did he tell you all of the angry letters last week?
The usual things, John.
But so many more from the coal states, blaming you for the strikes going on. And the farm states, because the prices have crashed. Many of those letters threatened your life, Mr. President.
What good would it do killing me?
And there's a bomb in the mail the other afternoon.
John, I'm not responsible for every crazy fool.
You are responsible for your own safety.
It's not as serious as all that.
Don't you realize what would happen to the country if you, well, one shot would be enough? In this crisis, an assassination would bring chaos, even anarchy. The future of this nation is at stake.
I know.
Coal is up $20 a ton. Schools are having to close. Hunger, illness. But it's not only the miners. There's not a single person untouched by this tragedy. The economic stalemate has affected every home in the nation. People's nerves are wearing thin.
You don't have to tell me all of that.
I beg your pardon.
More coffee, gentlemen.
Please.
Make mine black, Ralph.
Yes, sir.
John, what luck did you have?
Well, Hendricks came down with me on the train from New York last night.
In response to my invitation?
Yes, and with a new plan for ending the strike. It was prepared by Hendricks and the leading operators.
They aren't giving in.
I told Hendricks I was breakfasting with you, so he gave me this piece of paper for you.
Well, it's short enough.
Yes, it's short enough.
Now let's see. A representative of the mine operators, he asks me to appoint a 7-man commission to arbitrate the strike. If there's no representative of labor provided for.
No, sir.
Well, we will never get the men to go back to work unless their views are heard in all fairness.
No.
Almost a year we started trying to get these people to agree and get them together. We failed. And always for the same reason. This plan isn't really new. It leaves us exactly where we were at the beginning.
Maybe, Mr. President. Maybe there's something we can't do.
No, not at this time, at any rate.
Well then, I'll be going. I'm sorry my news wasn't better.
Well, you did your best, John. Thank you.
Day, Ralph.
Have a good day, Senator. Mr. President, before you go downstairs,
What is it, Ralph?
it's Miss Sarah, sir.
What about it? Oh, I'd forgotten. She's angry, huh?
Well, you know how she gets, sir.
And I'd rather face an angry mob outside the White House than Miss Sarah when she's, well, you know.
You should have thought of that last night, sir, before you lost the guards in that swamp.
Well, Miss Sarah or no Miss Sarah, I've got the coal strike to settle. Good morning, Miss Sarah.
Good morning, Mr. President. Excuse me.
What?
Your tie was crooked.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. And now I want you to
Did
take
you
a little...
sleep well, Mr. President?
Oh, yes, fine. I want you to
You don't look as if you have.
Well, I'm never boisterous in the morning.
I can tell when you've had enough sleep and when you haven't, and why.
That's it, exactly. I want you to get Mr. Hendricks on the telephone.
When you don't sleep well or enough, there's usually a reason.
Of course. The coal strike.
Conscience.
What?
The uneasy conscience of a small boy with evil in his heart.
Oh, what towering nonsense.
Small boys of your type think it's amusing to play pranks that worry all of us half to death.
Oh, Miss Sarah.
If I begged you once, I've begged you 100 times. Don't go around without your bodyguard.
Well, it's irritating to be followed.
That's not important.
Oh, isn't it?
It's not you they're guarding. It's the President of the United States.
Well, he can be irritated too.
Last night, losing those 2 men in the swamp, if ever I heard a childish trick.
I was testing out some military strategy. Hannibal did it to the Romans. He went a little way into a swamp.
Mr. President, please.
Oh, all right. Forgive me this time, Miss Sarah.
It isn't a joke. That bomb in the mail, the crazy letter threatening her life.
Miss Sarah, I want you to call up Alvin Hendricks at his hotel. Have him come over as soon as he can. Also, call up the senator. I'm ready for the next step in the coal strike.
You've decided what to do?
Yeah. Miss Sarah? I'm sorry I distressed you over the guards.
I'm sorry I spoke so harshly, Mr. President.
Shake hands.
Yes. You wanted me to call the senator?
Yes. And have him come back at the same time Hendricks does. Miss Sarah, I thought I was late. Now, I think we're going to get somewhere.
Mr. President, Mr. Hendricks. Mr. Hendricks, good morning.
Mr. President?
I hope we make more progress today than we did the last time.
Yes, I hope so too, Mr. President.
Good. Now, your plan asked me to set up a commission. It's to include an Army or Navy engineer, a mining engineer, a coal merchant, a federal judge, a churchman, a government representative, and a sociologist. With all these, I agree.
You're doing the country a service, sir.
But you've got to go further.
Further? How?
The miners have to be represented too.
You mean add a representative of the miners to the commission?
This plan won't work unless you do.
Why not? The entire anthracite industry is behind it.
Mr. Hendricks, We've tried time and time again to settle this strike without sitting down with both sides represented. I'm convinced that unless a representative of labor has a chance to meet with you, this plan is doomed to failure too.
Mr. President, our side, the coal operators, we...
Mr. Hendricks, the president cannot afford to take sides.
We agreed to accept the commission's decisions. Why can't the miners?
Mr. Hendricks, this strike has lasted for months and months. I want the operators and the miners to get together. The price of coal is skyrocketing. Industry is at a standstill. People all over the country are suffering. Winter is coming. And you know what that means. Cold, hunger, illness. Schools will have to close. Hospitals will be affected. These are intolerable conditions, human factors, and they outweigh any other consideration.
We're upset about these things too, Mr. President.
Then compromise.
Well,
You've got to.
we respectfully suggest that you appoint any individuals you like, as long as they stay within the 7 categories named in the plan. But to add a new one now...
In plain language, Mr. Hendricks, you flatly refuse.
Yes. We've already come so far, Mr. President. Can't you understand our position?
I can't accept a plan I know will fail.
And apparently this discussion is getting us nowhere.
I agree with you, Mr. Hendricks.
Good day, sir. Good day, Senator.
Goodbye, Mr. Hendricks.
Miss Sarah.
No, Mr. President.
Miss Sarah.
Mr. President, the country will fall into chaos.
Wait and see. Ready, Miss Sarah?
Yes, sir.
A letter to Mr. Hendricks. Dear Mr. Hendricks, I have carefully considered our talk this morning, and I have decided to accept your plan as it stands.
As it stands.
Mr. President, you dismissed Hendricks not 30 seconds ago. You could have accepted the plan then without arguing about it.
Oh, no. I got him to say what I wanted him to say.
What?
That as long as I stayed within the 7 categories, they'd accept any individuals I named.
I don't understand
Well,
this.
listen to the rest of the letter. These will be my appointees. Military engineer, Brigadier General John M. Wilson. Mining engineer, E.W. Parker. Judge George Gray. Coal merchant, Thomas H. Walker. Bishop John Spaulding. United States Commissioner Carol P. White. And as the sociologist...
What?
Sociologist. S-O-C-I-O...
I know how to spell it. I just didn't understand you.
As to the sociologist, you will meet him at the time of our conference. Sincerely yours.
Mr. President, who is this sociologist? Why are you keeping him such a secret?
The sociologist will be E. Clark, Grand Chief of the Order of Railroad Conductors.
E. Clark. But, Mr. President, he's the very kind of man Mr. Hendricks and his crowd have refused to accept.
You heard Hendricks say they would accept any sociologist I name. Do you know what a sociologist is, John?
Well,
A sociologist is an authority on social problems and conditions.
Thank you, Miss Sarah.
And John, would you say that the head of the Conductors Union is an authority on social problems and conditions?
Well, I suppose the miners will accept Clark.
Why, certainly. They know him and respect him.
But will Hendricks and the operators?
When they sit down with him, it'll be too late to back up.
Yes, but if they do back out, if the whole plan fails...
I'm president of all the people, not only some of them. I'll call out the army and operate the mines myself.
Excuse me, Senator. Your next visitor, Mr. President.
Good luck, Mr. President. I'll be anxious to know the results. Good day, Miss Sarah.
Goodbye, Senator.
Good day, Senator.
Well, Miss Sarah, what next?
You have a full list ahead of you, Mr. President. A congressional delegation from Iowa on behalf of federal road building. After luncheon, a convention of the Women's League for Better Citizenship to present you... Well, that's the last of them, Mr. President.
And that's the last time I make appointments after dinner.
Well, I'm sorry. You have one more.
Oh, Lord, no.
He's due in a moment or so on an appointment made by one of our congressmen. I'd better ask him to come back tomorrow.
No, it's all right. What's his name? What does he want?
Well, his name is Carlson. He's a farmer, I believe.
Well, there's no need for you to stay, Miss Sarah.
Oh, it's only 9 o'clock. Besides, I have a little more work to do.
Oh, you've done enough for today, Miss Sarah.
I'll be in my office, Mr. President. I'll close the door. You won't even know I'm there.
You won't disturb me.
Oh, Curry is the guard in the corridor tonight, so if you take a walk later...
I know. Oh, Curry? Curry?
Yes, sir, Mr. President.
Is that you pacing up and down?
Yes, sir, orders, Mr. President.
I see. Very well, Curry.
Yes, sir.
Oh, Curry?
Yes, Mr. President.
Curry, Captain Drew was telling me your wife's quite ill, isn't she?
Oh, yes, sir, she is.
It must worry you a great deal.
She's a rare woman, sir.
Well, why don't you run on home and see how she's feeling, Curry?
Well, I'm not off duty until morning, sir. And Captain Drew told me.
Oh, no one will be the wiser, Curry. Go on, take your time. Come back later. If Captain Drew asks any questions, I'll take responsibility. Now go ahead, Corey.
Well, oh, all right, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I won't be long. I'll go out the back way.
That's better. Oh, come in. Curry, I thought you had... Oh, well, who are you?
Excuse me, Mr. President, I have an appointment. The usher told me to come in.
Oh, yes, come in. It's, Mr...
Carlson, sir. Emery Carlson.
Oh, yes.
I had a hard time getting this appointment, Mr. President. You haven't got much time for people like me.
Well, certainly you understand that
I only understand one thing. You're against us. I don't have to understand anything else.
Us?
Look at my hands, Mr. President.
Well?
They got that way from plowing, from hoeing the hard ground, from years of work wiped out by the banks.
So sit down, won't you? Let's talk this thing over.
Talk? I'm not here for that, Mr. President. Only one thing I'll say. It's got to be done.
What?
Move away from that desk.
Why?
Move away from that desk!
Very well. Tell me, what's got to be done?
You're the enemy. You're bad for this country. You've closed down the mines. You're letting the banks take over the farms. It's bad to have an enemy. It's worse to have a friend turn into an enemy.
I don't understand.
Yes, you do, Mr. President. Farmers believed in you once, just like the miners. And look at us now, in debt. Farms taken over by the banks, squeezing us to death. Miners starving too. You want it that way, but it can't go on.
I don't want it that way.
What turned you against us, Mr. President? What did we do to you? Why are you fighting us?
I'm not.
We'd have our farms now if you didn't prevent it.
I prevented? How?
You sided with them, with the banks.
No, you're wrong.
Look at this, Mr. President.
A gun is dangerous only to the man holding it.
This gun is dangerous.
You'll be caught. There's a guard right outside. There are guards all over the grounds.
There's no guard outside. I came in that way.
And then the noise of the shot.
Mr. President, I'm going to kill you.
Why?
You're my enemy. Our enemy.
No.
For 20 years, I worked to keep my own farm. Now it's being taken from me because I couldn't pay the taxes and the mortgage. No one will give me credit. What chance have the farmers got as long as this strike goes on? What chance has anybody got?
What can I say to you? What can I
It's too late for that
The
question.
whole strike will be ended.
We pay for the miners and us. What about
The
us?
whole country will go back to work.
Fine words. We've heard them all.
Let me prove what I say is true. Let me go into the next room.
Oh, no, you don't.
To get a letter to show you.
You'll signal the guard.
Mr. Carlson, behind you is an open door to a small room where my daily records are kept. In one of them is a small letter I wrote today. That's what I wanted you to see.
Don't press any buttons.
So there aren't any in there. Is that all right?
All right. Walk past me, just to the door.
Here?
Now, I'm behind you. Walk ahead to that desk.
Well, it's about 1, 2, 3, 4 paces.
All right, now, get that letter.
You know, if I die, the vice president moves in here. That's the law.
I remember that from school.
Well, he'd have to do about the same as I do. He couldn't help the farmers or force the miners and operators to settle.
He could make a law.
The president can't compel anyone to do anything. Only the people can make a law. Now, here we are.
Come back in this room. Careful.
I'm being very careful.
Put it down on that desk, and I'll step back. Further, Mr. President.
Well, read the letter. I won't jump at you.
I'm reading.
I promise you, I won't move.
What's this mean?
We are forming a commission to end the strike.
A commission?
Yes. The operators have steadily refused to meet with representatives of labor, but they have agreed to meet with a sociologist.
Well,
if you read that letter, you'll notice that the name of the sociologist is left blank.
yes, I see.
Well, just for your information, Mr. Carson, and confidentially, our sociologist will be E. Clark, Grand Chief of the Order of Railroad Conductors.
A union?
Yes. The operators have agreed to meet. If that doesn't work, I'm calling out the army to work the mines. When coal is coming out of the ground again and people are working again, won't they be able to buy more food? Your corn and wheat and everything that the farmer grows? Does that look as if I'm letting you down?
Great. I guess I'm just crazy. A man gets all tired and nutty. He has to do something.
Mr. Carlson, you realize that I have to turn you over to the guards.
Yes, I know.
Threatening the life of a president is... Mr. Carlson, I think you'd better let me have that gun.
Yes, I know I was wrong. I guess too late to be sorry. Go ahead. Call the guard.
You know, Carlson, I believe you're sincere. You were wrong, but see here, Carlson. Go out that door and to the end of the hall. At the end of the corridor, you'll find a guard. Ask him to take you to Captain Drew. Turn yourself over to the captain, and then well, it may go easy on you that way.
I'm so glad I came here, Mr. President, because I found out we were wrong about you. God bless you, sir, and help you.
Good luck, Carlson. Oh, Miss Sarah, I thought you'd gone.
I've been working. Where's Curry?
Curry? Oh.
And didn't I hear you and Captain Drew talking in the corridor?
Oh, yeah, yes. He was asking me a lot of questions. Oh, you must be very tired, Miss Sarah.
Questions about what?
Miss Sarah, I'm worried about you. You must be very tired.
Oh, you're awfully anxious to get rid of me.
No, not really. Sit down. Shall I send for some tea?
I could swear you've been upset by something. Don't you want to tell me? Don't you think you ought to?
Miss Sarah, I don't know what you have. Oh, the door. Yes, come on in.
Mr. President.
Oh, yes, Curry. Well, Curry, thank you for looking in. Everything is fine, thank you, Curry. And good night, Curry. Now, Miss Sarah, I want you to...
Oh, pardon me, Mr. President. I just wanted to give you this, sir.
Oh, thank you, Curry. Thank you very much. Well, good night,
Open
Curry.
it, Mr. President.
Open it.
Curry obviously hopes you will.
Thank you, Miss Sarah.
Cookies.
My wife wanted you to have it, sir. She was that grateful.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Curry. And don't mention it. By all means, don't mention it.
I told her how you let me off, sir.
Oh, don't mention it, Curry. Don't mention it.
Well, anyway, thank you, sir. And good night, sir.
Good night. Miss Sarah, will you have a cookie?
Why didn't you tell me about Carlson of your own accord?
Miss Sarah, you were eavesdropping.
You were afraid I'd be angry about Curry.
Oh, I wish you'd take a cookie.
A small boy. A little boy so pleased with his games, outwitting his elders that he doesn't care what he does with his own life.
Well,
I listened at the door, frozen stiff. Any sound would have set that gun off, and Mr. President, I've got to make you see it. One shot from that gun tonight, and everything you're doing would be smashed. So much depends on your life. And it isn't your life. It's the miners and their families and the senators and Captain Drew and... You don't belong to yourself. You belong to all of us. You've got to be careful.
well, I'm sorry. I promise you, I will be from now on. But, Miss Sarah, you're crying.
I know what it means when they say enough to make the angels weep.
And you are an angel, Miss Sarah. You're right. And this will never happen again. Forgive me, please.
Forgive you? I just can't stand another minute of it and I'm going home. And if that Curry ever moves from here for the rest of his life, I'll have him skinned alive.
Good night, Miss Sarah. Well, the miners and the operators did accept my appointment with Mr. Clark as a sociologist. Alvin Hendricks was certainly surprised when he recognized Clark as head of the conductors union, but he stuck to his word. The commission was set up and the strike was settled. That was the first time a thing like that was ever done. And so we did make a little progress. After that, too, I was careful not to be careless anymore about the guards. I learned my lesson. Besides, I hated to see Miss Sarah get so upset. But it was fun leading McGrath and Cooper around that swamp the way Hannibal did the Romans. Have you figured out yet who I was when all that happened? It really did happen, you know. Yes, it's a true story, and it happened in 1902. And it was Teddy Roosevelt who had my job then. Yes, when Teddy Roosevelt was Mr. President. Drop in again next week, won't you? I've got another story I think you'll enjoy. Good night.
Edward Arnold will soon be seen with Clark Gable, Deborah Carr, Sidney Greenstreet, and Adolph Monju in Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer's production of The Hucksters. Mr. President, starring Edward Arnold, is presented each week by the American Broadcasting Company. It is produced by Robert G. Jennings, directed by Dwight Hauser. Tonight's script by Paul Milton was based on 2 incidents in the life of Theodore Roosevelt. Music was composed and conducted by Basil Adlam. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.
If I were to read, much less answer, all the attacks made on me, This shop might as well be closed for any other business. I do the very best I know how, the very best I can. And if the end brings me out wrong, 10 angels swearing I was right would make no difference.
Mr. President, starring Metro Goldwyn Mayer's Edward Arnold. Mr. President, at home in the White House, the elected leader of our people, our fellow citizen and neighbor, these are the little-known stories of the men who've lived in the White House. Dramatic, exciting events in their lives that you and I so rarely hear. True human stories of Mr. President. Today's Mr. President story will begin in just a moment, but meanwhile, I'd like to say a word about the generations of American men and women who have found their greatest inspiration in the lives of the presidents of the United States. To America, there is no more stirring stories in the world than the stories of the men who have become the leaders of their country. Their deeds are direction pointers for the American mind. People in today are more interested than ever in knowing the intimate, interesting and inspiring facts about the lives of their presidents. Now, for the first time in radio history, the American Broadcasting Company takes listeners behind the White House reception rooms and ballrooms, glittering with gold-braided famous personalities, into the privacy of the breakfast room and study, where the presidents are shown as individuals with human doubts, laughter, love, and faith. Mr. President is a biography built around the men who have filled America's highest office. We invite you to listen now for today's story of Mr. President. Now, in just a moment, Edward Arnold.
The incidents I have in mind today tell the story of a president and a strange dream. Later on, of course, I'll tell you which president this happened to, but meanwhile, you may be able to guess. He woke early. He woke to an unaccustomed, wonderful feeling of great happiness. And for a moment, he lay there wondering why. And then suddenly the warm, reassuring knowledge started pulsing through him again. The long war was over. He got up, put on a dressing gown, and went over to the window. He stood there looking out at the calm, sweet coming of the Washington dawn. From his window, he could see the flags and the bunting of victory. And he stood there, grinning at them. Suddenly his door opened cautiously.
Good morning, Father. I thought you'd be up.
Oh, good morning, son. You're up early.
I woke up. What's on the agenda for today, Pop?
Oh, nothing very unusual. Office business, interviews, cabinet meeting. Tonight, I think your mother and I are going out.
Oh, you forgot the War Department.
Yes, I did.
You never mentioned them once. They wouldn't like that.
Well, I'll have to go to the War Department at least twice.
It looks like it's going to be a nice day.
Yes, indeed. You know, sometimes you wake up and you think, this is my day. This is the day when things are going to go well for me. From the beginning to the end. This is my day. Did you ever feel that way?
Yes, sir, a couple of times. But every time I did, I ended up getting a licking.
Oh, I see. And speaking of lickings, that reminds me, son, you are not to stand downstairs where the people wait for their interviews and charge them 5 cents to see me. I can't have that.
It's a very reasonable rate.
Well, that's not important.
You said you wanted me to be enterprising.
Well, you'll have to find some other way to do it.
Secretary Stanton scolded me about that, too. He said you weren't worth 5 cents.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, he says that when anyone can see you for nothing, why should some people have to pay 5 cents? I don't think that's right. They should have to pay.
Why?
Because I need the money.
Oh, I see.
Morning, Mother.
I thought I'd find you two in here together. Good morning, dear. Did you have a good night's sleep?
Oh, wonderful, Mary. How about you?
Oh, the shouting in the streets kept me awake. Everyone's certainly excited about the prospect of peace.
Yes, those same voices put me to sleep, and it was the first good night's sleep I've had in months.
It's been a strain, but it's almost over now. Oh, son,
Yes, Mother?
there's a woman downstairs with a tray of apples and gingerbread and candy that she says you bought.
I'll go right down.
Wait a minute. Whoa, steady there. What's all this about?
Well, I'm setting up a fruit stand on the Grand Corridor.
You're doing what?
A fruit stand! I'm going to sell to the people who are waiting in line to see Father.
And now see here, don't you laugh at him. You'll only encourage him.
Oh, you're right. Now, son, what did I just explain to you about the people waiting for interviews?
You said I couldn't charge them 5 cents to see.
Well, I should think not.
But I'm not charging them to see Father now. I'm charging them for apples. This time they're getting something for their money.
Oh, indeed.
Oh, you can't do it. And that's final.
Now, wait a minute, my dear. Look, son, where did you get the money to buy this woman's stock?
I saved my pocket money, and I got a few things from the White House kitchen by saying I was hungry. And one of the carpenters got me a pair of trestles and a whiteboard to put the things on.
In the corridor of the White House?
I'm an American citizen. I got rights.
You haven't any rights to peddle things in the White House.
But I've already bought the things.
All right, go see your woman and set up your store.
Thanks, Father. I knew you wouldn't let Mother take away my rights.
We'll be the laughingstock of Washington.
Oh, dear, my dear. All children are entitled to put up some sort of lemonade stand once in their lives.
All right, Mr. President.
Mary, come over here by the window. Now, let me put my arm around you.
Oh,
That's a fine sight down there, isn't it? Look at those red, white, and blue decorations. The Yankee Doodle colors of freedom and liberty and justice for all.
it's good to see you so happy, dear.
Oh, I am happy. For the first time in a long, long while, I am happy. I can see an end in sight now. Peace for the country. Time for you and I to settle down and love one another. No, I'm afraid I haven't had much time to be
Oh, there's no
a good...
more fortunate woman in the nation than your wife, Mr. President.
Oh, how I love you for saying that.
Darling, put me down! I suppose someone came in.
Remember when I used to spin you around like this?
Oh, someone might see us.
Well, what if they do? What if they do? I love you, and I don't care if the Senate, the House of Representatives, and the War Department know.
Oh, my dear.
See that I get a big breakfast this morning, double on everything. You know, I could eat the White House.
Yes, sir. Oh, I meant to ask you. Sunday's Easter. You'll want to give some sort of message, won't you?
Is Sunday Easter? Well, I lost track of time.
Yes, it is.
Then this is Good Friday.
Yes, Good Friday.
Well, the news of peace will certainly make it a joyous Easter. Woman, what about my breakfast?
Immediately, Mr. President.
The streets are crowded with people.
Oh, don't talk with your mouth full, son.
Isn't it an exciting day?
The general has arrived at the War Department.
Oh, he has he? How is it that you get so much more information before I do?
I got connections.
Oh?
Then maybe you know if the general and his wife are joining your father and me tonight. I sent over a note asking them to go to the theater with us, dear.
He doesn't know yet.
Oh?
Oh, he doesn't. And how do you know that?
He hasn't had a chance to ask the wife.
Are you inferring that a general who makes decisions involving thousands of men has to ask his wife if he can go out?
Yes, sir.
You consider that democracy?
No, sir. That's marriage.
Hello, Dad, Mama, Thomas.
Well, Robert!
Oh, Robert, did you bring me any guns?
Well, son, it's good to see you.
Oh,
You
Rob.
look fine.
Oh, I've been so worried. We expected you on leave last night. Sit down, have some breakfast. There's muffins. The war's over. Isn't it wonderful?
It is wonderful, and I'm starved.
Hey, did you get wounded anyplace?
No,
Oh,
Did you want your brother to get wounded?
everybody I know has a wounded brother but me.
well, I'm glad I can accommodate you.
Well, sit down. Have some breakfast, son. Come.
We're going to the theater tonight, Robert. Would you like to go?
Oh, I don't think so, Mother, thank you. I think I'd just like to sit around and enjoy being home tonight.
If anyone asked me, that isn't what I'd say.
When you're bigger, we'll ask you.
Well, I'd better be getting to my desk. Speaking, Colfax is coming over this morning to discuss government policy. And then Congressman Cole from California and John Cresswell.
Father, why do they call it Good Friday?
It's the day that Christ was crucified, son.
But why do they call it good?
Because Christ was good.
But it wasn't a Good Friday, it was a bad Friday.
Son, I don't have time to talk to you about it right now, but you and I'll have a talk about it in the morning, shall we?
I'll be glad when it's tomorrow.
Why?
I don't like today.
You mean you don't like this day, or you don't like Good Friday?
I don't know which it is, but it isn't a good day. It's a bad day. It's a bad day.
Son, don't talk like
I
that.
wonder why you feel that way,
You
boy.
didn't feel that way until I came in, did you? I know what it is. I've heard men talk like that, just like before battle. It's a sudden feeling of death in the air. It's because I've come back from the front.
Oh, come on, Thomas. Let's you and I go to see your fruit stand.
That's strange.
Don't worry about it. He's pretty sensitive, and the combination of Good Friday and me coming back.
Well, I'll have to talk to him about Easter the first minute I can. I don't think he understands it at all.
Oh, dear. Do you mind terribly if we don't go to see Aladdin?
Well, I thought you wanted to see Aladdin.
Well, Laura Keene is playing in Our American Cousin, and it's a benefit as well as her last appearance there, and I thought it might be nice if we went to see her.
Oh, well, why not? If that's what you would enjoy, my dear.
All right, dear. I'll send word to the theater.
Yes. Oh, Robert, you go ahead with your breakfast. I'm going to the War Department. Mm-hmm. Take a look at your brother after a while, see if he's all right, will you?
Sure.
You'll find him in the Grand Corridor selling apples.
Oh, sure. Doing what?
Selling apples.
What for?
For money.
He's gonna make money selling apples?
Well, he thinks he is. But by the time he reimburses the White House kitchen for whatever he talked them out of, pays the carpenter for use of the bench, pays the government rent for the space in the corridor, he's not going to come out very well. I'll see you later this afternoon, Robert. I'm awful glad you're home. Well,
Good morning, Mr. President.
Good morning, sir.
good morning, Mr. Secretary. General, it's good to see you. How are you, sir?
Well, tired, but healthy as an ox.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. You're looking very well. Victory becomes you.
Oh, thank you, sir.
You seem in unusual spirits today, Mr. President.
I am. Sit down, gentlemen, sit down. I woke up feeling genuinely happy for the first time in years. You know something? We're going to receive good news today. Stanton, last night I had that dream again.
Well, what dream is that, sir?
Well, I've dreamt it before every one of the important events of the war. I dream that I'm on a strange ship, a singular, indescribable vessel, and that I'm moving towards a dark and definite shore. And every time I dream it, victory follows. Isn't that right, Mr. Secretary?
Well, that's what you say, Mr. President. I have no way of verifying your dreams.
No. Well, General, my wife tells me she has invited you and your wife to the theater with us tonight.
You go? Well, Mr. President, you can't go to the theater tonight.
Why not, then?
Well, it's not safe.
Oh, nonsense. You're an alarmist, isn't he, General?
Well, I'm afraid I'm on the Secretary's side, Mr. President. I think it'd be most unwise for you to make a public appearance at this time.
Oh, I make public appearances every day. Nobody's shot me yet. You're getting to be a terrible nuisance, Stanton. For 3 years, every time I step outside, cavalry, foot guards, plainclothes attendants spring from everywhere. I can't even go to the office alone.
Yes, it's one of the penalties of being president.
Oh, it's a lot of nonsense.
Well, sir, in my case, I couldn't accompany you. I'm starting for home this afternoon to see my children. It's been a long time since I've been with them.
I understand. Please take to them my good wishes.
Why don't you stay home and have a nice evening with your family, Mr. President?
Because I'm going to the theater. I want a little relaxation. I'll take Eckert with me.
Oh, now, sir.
Did you know Eckert could break a poker over his arm, Mr. Secretary?
Mr. President, whether Eckert can break a poker over his arm or not is completely outside.
Oh, no, it isn't. No assassin would dare touch me with Eckert along.
Eckert will be working with me tonight here at the War Department.
Mr. Secretary, I'll wager that you're the kind of man that goes to a zoo and doesn't take any peanuts with him.
Well, whatever you think of me, Mr. President, Eckert will still be working tonight.
Very well, Mr. Secretary. I'll take Major Rathbone along. He isn't under your jurisdiction.
Mr. President, if you'd only listen.
Oh, smile, Mr. Secretary. The war is over. Peace is at hand. Surely even the President of the United States is entitled to one evening of relaxation.
Yes, if he doesn't have to go to the theater for it.
No, sir. I'm going to the theater. My wife's going to get dressed up in her prettiest gown, and we're going to forget that there's such a thing as war for one whole evening. I tell you, today is my day, Stan, from beginning to end. My day.
Very well, Mr. President.
You'll see that Major Rathbone receives my invitation.
I'll see that he receives it.
Good. Come, General, it's time for that cabinet meeting.
Yes, Mr. President.
Well, it does me good to get the best of you once in a while, Mr. Secretary. There's nothing I enjoy more than to win an argument with you.
I hope you have won this argument, Mr. President. I sincerely hope you've won it. And in just a moment, we'll come back to Edward Arnold and Mr. President. This story could be your story. On a busy avenue, a woman with a shopping bag is hurrying along towards home when she suddenly remembers a forgotten errand in the store across the street. Without waiting until she comes to the traffic light at the intersection, she turns abruptly, walks between the parked cars at the curb and into the roadway. Now, there's a squeal of brakes, a scream, and then tragedy. She is one of 30 pedestrians killed in this country every day. And in most cases, there is no reason for these deaths except carelessness. 3 out of 4 of the pedestrians killed are jaywalking, violating either a traffic regulation or a safety rule. Of course, pedestrians are not the only ones killed in traffic accidents. Other fatalities are a result of collisions or accidents to passengers in motor vehicles. So be careful, both as a pedestrian and as a driver. The life you may save may be your own. Now, back to Edward Arnold and Mr. President.
You've probably guessed the name of the president in this story, but later on, of course, I'll tell you which one it was. After the cabinet meeting, the president had his lunch, and the excited voices of people jubilantly crowding the streets of Washington lifted inside him. It was their day, and it was his. God was in his heaven, and all was right with the Union. After lunch, he started for his office.
Would you like to buy an apple, sir?
Oh, hello, son. Yes, I think an apple is just what I need to polish off my lunch. Tell me, how's business?
Here you are. 5 cents, please.
Oh, I have it right here.
Business is slow this afternoon. Most everyone has gone to church.
Oh, yes, of course. Oh, that reminds me. I must think about some sort of Easter message.
Why was Christ crucified, Father?
Well, because there were people who hated him, son. People who didn't understand what he was trying to do.
Bad people?
Do you know what Christ said about them as he was dying? Forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do.
This was the day it happened?
Yes, this was the day it happened.
Could he have saved himself?
Yes,
Well, why didn't he?
because he wanted to show you and me and all the people before us and after us that death was not an end and that we should not be afraid.
I'm afraid today, Father.
Oh, of what, boy?
I don't know. Could I sleep with you tonight?
Well, yes, of course.
Do you have to go to the theater?
Now, don't you start on me.
I'm lonesome for you.
Well, how could you be lonesome for me? I'm right here.
I know, but I'm still lonesome for you.
Son, I don't quite understand what's wrong with you today. I don't know what to say.
Oh, here you are. This is the hardest house to find anything in. I wondered if you wanted to take anyone else on our drive this afternoon. You have so many old friends in town.
No. Let's you and I go by ourselves this afternoon. And Mary, what do you think about the theater party? Do you still want to go?
Well, dear, it's been announced that you'll be there now. I think they planned some special ceremony.
Then, of course, we'll go. I wouldn't want to disappoint the people.
I thought you wanted to go.
Well, I did. But Robert has come home. The little fella's upset. And, well, it's been announced we'll go. I better get to my office.
The carriage will be ready late this afternoon.
Good. I'll enjoy a ride. This time of year, it's nice to get outside and enjoy. Whoa!
Why are you stopping?
Well, it's so beautiful out here today. And it's so good to be alive. To have you and the boys and the land like this to live in. Mary, as soon as these 4 years are over, let's find ourselves a farm on the banks of the Sangamon. Then I'll take up my law practice again. Would you like that?
I'd love it.
You and I'll go to the country dances and show our children a thing or two. And I'll kiss you in the moonlight on the way home. Just as though we were courting all over again.
Oh, my dear, I love you so. Maybe the last 3 years I haven't said it as often as I felt it, but I respect you and honor you and love you with my whole heart. And to have you to myself again, oh dear, if it only happened.
Oh, it is going to happen, my dear. We're going to settle down and live happily ever after. You and I and the children.
You know, I've only seen you this joyous once before in my whole life.
The night before we were married?
No, the night before our son William died.
Mary.
It's almost frightening to see you like this, as though someone thought, let him be very happy today. Let him laugh, so that he'll be able to take the tears that'll come tomorrow.
Mary.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that, but I've been thinking it all day.
You? And the boys?
It's foolish of me, but... Come on, dear, we better start back. You still have some more interviews and another trip to the War Department to make before we can go to the theater.
All right. Come on, Joe. Come on.
Well, it's an exciting day, isn't it, Mr. President?
Yes, it is indeed, Mr. Crook. I'm sorry you have to walk along with me. I'm sure you'd like to be celebrating.
Oh, I'll celebrate later, sir.
You know, I've been doing a lot of thinking today. I'm always joking with Stanton about all his mythical assailants, but I believe there are men who want to take my life. I have no doubt they'll do it.
Why isn't that? That isn't like you, Mr. President.
Oh, I know it would be easy to do it. This very minute, someone could shoot from a window or from around a corner.
If anything happened to you, sir, it would be the end of the country.
No, don't you think that for a minute? This country isn't dependent on any one man, Crook. It isn't a leader that makes the country, it's the country that makes the leader. It isn't the man that makes the office of the president, it's the office of the president that makes the man. I am what the majority of the American people who elected me want me to be. When someone else takes my place, he'll be what the majority want him to be, or he won't be president very long.
But still, sir, a man must have the makings of a president in him.
Well, if a man is a good American, then he has the makings of a president. Oh no, my friend, the loss of a single man can never hurt this nation. People always put another man in office and go on. The nation may grieve, it may have a sense of loss, but it will go on.
Sir, we'll hope that it won't have to go on without you.
You know, I love this land of mine. I love her voices, the voices of the storms, the winds, the voices of the hammer and the saw, the voices of the railroads, splitting the prairie with the challenge of civilization, the voices of the people, arguing and growing by their arguments, learning more and more every day what freedom means, and liberty. I hope I shall be listening to them for a long time yet. Well, what is to be, will be. Isn't that right, Crook?
I don't know, sir.
Oh, I know. What is to be, will be. fastest lady in Washington tonight. Turn around and let me view the other extremity of that gown.
Oh, do you like it?
Oh, I'm overpowered by your elegance.
Come on, Mr. President, we don't want to miss the curtain.
All right, I'm ready.
Where are your gloves?
Oh, in my pocket.
Well,
Oh, Mary, do I have to put them on? They're so uncomfortable.
you're the president, dear.
Oh, I would never have run for office if I'd known I'd have to wear gloves.
You can put them on just before we get to the theater. The carriage is waiting. Oh, it's a fine evening.
Oh, yes, it is. Oh, careful of your dress, my dear, careful. Good evening, Major Rathbone. Oh, here, my dear, let me help you into the carriage.
How do you do, Major Rathbone? It's so nice to have you with us. Father! Father!
Thomas, excuse me, my dear. What's the matter, son?
I found out what Good Friday's about. I found out what Easter's about.
What is it about, son?
It's about death. They buried him and they sealed him in the tomb. It's about death.
No, son. It isn't about death. You've missed the whole point. It isn't about death. It's about resurrection.
Do you have to go to the theater?
Well, yes, of course, you know that. But I'll see you when I get home. Maybe I'll wake you up, and you and I'll have a glass of milk together. Would you like that? Good Friday will be over then.
Yes, Father.
Now, run along to bed. Good night, son. Good night.
Goodbye, Father. Goodbye, Father. Goodbye.
Well, you probably figured out by now who I was when all that happened. It really did happen, you know, and you'll have the answer in just a moment.
The singing stars of the future are heard in the Metropolitan Opera auditions of the air. This program, broadcast each Sunday over most of these ABC stations, has already selected more than 40 new members for the Metropolitan Opera. Each week, these young singers who aspire to a career in grand opera are given the chance to compete for contracts with the Met winners from previous auditions, including such noted stars as Eleanor Steber, Patrice Munsell, Robert Merrill, Leonard Warren, and many others. So, for one of the most interesting musical experiences on the radio, don't forget to listen to the Metropolitan Opera auditions of the air every Sunday afternoon over most of these same ABC stations. It's a musical treat you won't forget. Now, here again is Edward Arnold.
Miss Harris.
I'm sure we will.
You know, we had originally planned to go to Grover's Theater, but Mary thought as long as it was Miss Keene's closing performance, that we should go to Ford's.
It's supposed to be a very worthwhile evening.
Here we are.
Look at all the people. What have you gloves, dear?
Yes, Mary. Yes. Come, ladies, let me help you out. I'm sure this will be a memorable evening for all of us.
Right this way, sir. Your box is ready for you, Mr. Lincoln.
Thank you very much. Yes, Abraham Lincoln woke on that April morning with a feeling of great happiness, and as the shadowed hours mounted towards evening, wore gradually into the gathering darkness until that bullet plunged Ford's Theater into an eternal blackness. And the strange ship set sail for the dark, indefinite shore. Come and see me again next week, won't you? I'll have a story about a president who called a cabinet meeting to defend a woman's reputation. Thank you, and goodbye.
Edward Arnold appeared by arrangement with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, producers of the Technicolor picture, The Three Musketeers, starring Lana Turner, Gene Kelly, and June Allison. Mr. President was created by Robert G. Jennings. It was produced and directed by Leonard Reed. This story by Gene Holloway told of Abraham Lincoln, last day in the White House. Music was composed by Basil Adlam. Be sure to listen again next week when the American Broadcasting Company and its affiliated stations brings you Edward Arnold with another interesting and factual story of Mr. President. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. We hope that you've enjoyed our show today and taking a look at past presidents, and hopefully you've learned a little something about our American history. Our next show is a completely different direction as we tell the story of a man who tries to take down the president of a television studio by entering a game show. It's our recreation of that classic movie adapted for the Screen Guild Players' Champagne for Caesar. And it all happens on Sunday, March 31st, right here at the Oak Park Arms. So be sure to check out our website at www.ttdyradio.com for the latest updates and show information. And now, the cast of Those Thrilling Days of Yesteryear. Don Gingle. Lars Timpa. John Corona. Pam Turlo. Patty Clayton, Jim Brewer, Matt Whalen, and of course no radio show would be complete without the synchronous sound effects of silence of our sound effects team, Pam Turlo and John Corona. And today's show was directed also by Pam Turlo. Yes. Excellently done. And I'm your producer and also sound effects, Ben Dooley. And on behalf of the cast, we would like to extend our thanks to you, the audience, for helping once again our show to come alive and for living those thrilling days of yesteryear so that we could bring them back to you. Thank you.